Thank you. Great to be back in Charlottesville. You know, these have been perilous and wounding times here in Charlottesville. I was here during the horrors, and I was here for our response to those horrors at the Bicentennial celebration. And I think this is a particularly challenging time in our culture to talk about an idea of being an other. And this extraordinary film addresses that in very profound and poignant and beautiful ways. And we are very honored, especially in this moment, to have Trudie Styler here and to share her amazing film, Freak Show. So, Trudie.
Hey everybody. Gosh, it's so nice to see you all. And I just want to say so many thanks to Jody Kobasa for this wonderfully warm welcome that he's given to Celine and myself. Celine Rattray and I head up a company called Maven Pictures, which is largely a platform for diversity, for giving more empowerment in the film industry to women. And I got this opportunity to direct Freak Show, and I'm enormously proud of it. I'm especially proud to be here today because it explores some LGBTQ themes, but not only that, more importantly, it explores the biggest theme that I think that we're all addressing right now, the independent article of human rights written in 1948 says that we're all born free, and we all have the right to be free and to express ourselves in ways that we are completely ourselves. And as we know, this has been more and more dialed back and violated by the terrible things that we're encountering on a daily basis. So with that, I'm going to leave you to watch, and I hope enjoy Freak Show. Although it explores some pretty heavy themes, it does so with a lightness of heart, and it's quite uplifting, and it's quite funny. So please feel free to laugh in those moments. And thanks all so very much. I'm delighted to be here.
All right. Well, this was extraordinary and moving and important and essential and of this moment like few others are. So bravo to you both. You've embarked on as I said beforehand, we're in a moment of wounds. We're in a moment of a tearing, a ripping of the fabric of our very society. And this film, I think, is part of a great response to that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let's talk about James St. James and how this came from him to you, to the screen. Talk about this club kid and how this film emerged.
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. It was, well, first of all, thank you, all of you, for being such a great audience. We're really thrilled to share the film with you. It came to us as a script, so it's already adapted, and it was Drew Barrymore's company that sent it to us. And we've been wanting to work with her and her company for a while and have kind of similar philosophies of wanting to make movies that are entertaining and fun, but also have a message, and that people will leave, inspired or touched, and will really impact the world positively. So she sent us the script. There was actually a director at the time that was interested in doing it, and we started pulling all the pieces together, and we found the cast, we found the money, and just when the pieces are together, he actually had another movie that he had to go off and do, and we turned to Trudie, my business partner, and who'd been wanting to direct for a while, and asked her if she'd be interested in stepping in. So the movie came together very quickly from that point.
And this is Trudie's directorial debut.
Thank you.
So the script came from this novel, and what was your first point of contact with script, or did you know the work beforehand, or what was your journey that
that led to this connection?
Well, I was actually, because I'm an actor as well as a producer now, a director, but there was a movie called Party Monster that was based on one of St. James's books, starring Macaulay,
yeah.
and I got shortlisted to play his mum.
Ah.
And so I was very aware of that script, and then years later I met the delightful James St. James when we were embarking on Freak Show. So I do have I had a tenuous contact with him.
And was the script ready to go as you began your connection to it, or talk a little bit about that?
Well, we were really blessed with screenwriters for Freak Show. PJ Clifton and Beth Ragazio are the screenwriters, and when we were working with our first directors, Celine and I were producers, we were already in the process of casting and looking for our Billy, because he's the linchpin, isn't he, of this movie, completely. He's only not in 2 scenes. So we looked, and I think we auditioned like 80 young males for the role of Billy. And when I became director, I sort of felt, this is such a humongous role that if we get this at all wrong, we simply don't have a movie. And I found myself on a trip to England, and our casting director, Avi Kaufman, I called her and I said, look, is there anyone in England we should be looking at? And she said, have you heard of Alex Lawther? And I actually had, because I'd been to Imitation Game, and I thought that he was very notable in his 2 scenes. That
He plays the young Alan Turing.
Yeah. Did you guys see Imitation Game? Well, if you go back to it, you'll see the young Alan Turing is Alex Lawther. And I was in London, and Alex was doing a play, and he ran in one Sunday morning apologising that he hadn't learned the lines for the audition. I said, oh my, sit down, let's have a chat, let's read to each other. And within about 10 minutes, I think, that I knew I'd met Billy, and from then on I just knew that I could direct this film.
And just to add, the job of the producer is to be as cheap as possible and always look to cut costs. So I told Trudie, let's hire someone in Manhattan, and if you need to, you can look in Brooklyn or the Bronx, but no further than Astoria. So she was under strict instructions, and then she came back from England and said, I found our guy, and I was like, oh no, please don't say she found someone in England.
What Celine's learned over 6 years is I never do as I'm told.
Well, and you know, that began, I guess, the casting process, but you've assembled this remarkable ensemble around him.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about that. Celine, maybe you could talk about how you threw that net wide and have some of the best actors we have working today in this film.
I think the key from a financing perspective was to cast some of the parents or adults with recognizable names that would help basically seal the deal on the money front. And so Mav was really a central part of the casting, and we wanted someone who not only had that name recognition but also meant something within the community, and whose brand kind of worked within what we were trying to do. So we were really blessed because we reached out to Bette Midler through her agent and had back a yes a few days later.
Of course, and having Bette on board, who's not only a sublime actress, but she's a great activist, so it really, as Celine says, it was really supported the themes of the movie, as did Laverne Cox stepping up, who normally is a leading actress, and just offering her this cameo role, which she so graciously agreed to do. And I think that scene with her and Lynette is, I didn't see you guys watching it today, but it's really so good, this face-off between the fundamentalist Christian who's invoking President Trump's words of "Make America Great Again," and Laverne's wonderful reaction to it. I think it's sort of like we were very lucky to have her. Yeah, we love Laverne Cox. Thank you.
It's interesting to have heard you talk about the themes and that this is a response, because when we started the journey of making this, these films take such a long time to get made, and we've been working on this for 5 years. And I think in a way there was less urgency with the story when we started. And the Make America Great Again, for example, was a throwaway, sentence that the screenwriter had come up with, but we never at the time in making this film realized that this was going to become the motto of this country.
And that's so interesting. I was having a conversation earlier today with someone, at our Bicentennial celebration, UVA's Bicentennial, there was a pretty significant shout out to LGBTQ. The movement itself, and when Love is Love came up on the rotunda, on Jefferson's rotunda, the crowd exploded in applause. And 5 years ago, I don't think that would have happened. So, in a way, the timing is perfect, that it did wait to this moment. You also surround yourself with some of the very best cinema artists anywhere. Dante Spinati shot this film, one of the greatest DPs in the world. Colleen Atwood. I mean, talk about how you brought the remarkable crew together.
In 1987, I was a young actress doing a movie in Cinecittà in Italy. There was just me and a snake and an actor called Greg Henry who worked for 3 days, but I worked for 16 weeks with this snake. And it was called, the movie was called Mamba. It ultimately became called Fair Game. And Dante was the cinematographer, probably the only person on set who spoke any English, as I didn't have any Italian. And we got chatting a lot and got to know each other and have remained lifelong friends. And I remember one afternoon chat between shots, he said, Trudie, do you think you'll always be an actress? And I said, yeah, maybe. One day I'd really love to be a director. So he said, well, when that day comes, you will call me, and I will be at your side. So 2 years ago, I called him and I said, you remember that day in 1987 when you said you'd be at my side if I was a director? Well, it's come. So, of course, he had to look at his calendar, and we had to shoot the movie in early fall, leading up to Homecoming, which I'm a Brit, but you guys know, it's sort of like anywhere that leads up to Thanksgiving, you have your Homecoming celebrations. So we wanted to do it in that sort of timely way, and Dante was free, and became my great collaborator. And
it's stunning.
The cinematography is really wonderful, and he really had such a huge understanding of what I wanted to get out of Freak Show. The way that because English isn't his first language, so he asked me to read the entire screenplay to him, and which I loved doing because I'm an actor, and so I could do all the parts. And from that, we sort of like wrote a storyboard together, because we had only 22 days to actually shoot it, and 4 weeks to prep. So it was a very, very compressed time and schedule. So we were quite prepared with what we wanted to do.
It was actually interesting in terms of the crew and the cast. It was a small film, but everyone was so happy to be here. And you really sense on films, there are films where it's just a gig and people just want to get through it. And this was one where there was just such a positive atmosphere, and just everyone wanted to be there.
That's great. And of course, from a design point of view, costumes, hair, makeup is central to this storytelling. And talk about how that was conceived and the collaboration process of that, and how it came to the fabulousness that's represented on screen.
So we'll talk a little bit about costumes. There was just so little in the budget, that there are two Billy looks. The ones where he's fabulously plumed, and is his Billy Bubbles outfit, I call it, when he's like the mermaid, where he's had a particularly grueling day at school because he's done everything. He's come back from his convalescence. He's done everything that Flip asked him. More Wrangler, less fabulous, and that doesn't cut it. He still gets bullied. So his kind of like his compensatory thing was to put on his like most amazing dress, which Colleen Atwood graciously made, and it took quite a few weeks to make. So she chose. I wanted to have this sort of like creature of the sea and him looking resplendent in that. And the other outfit that I think that she does brilliantly is that the bride dress. So I gave her a direction of, actually in the original, he was supposed to emerge as a great crocodile, kind of like a great aquatic monster, because we originally set the story in Florida, but we decided to take advantage of the New York breaks that Celine can talk about, that we ended up shooting it in New York. So I wanted to think of what personality would Billy want to dress himself as for what he deemed to be the last day of his school, and of course which tragically turns out that he's going to a beat-up that he has no idea about. So I thought of the bride, sort of like a goth kind of bride, but somebody who, bride going to a wedding day is usually the happiest day of her life, and for him it was going to be the happiest day when he could finally escape this environment that had been so cruel to him. And so it's sort of like a lamb going to the slaughter. So I thought Colleen creating that wonderful bridal costume and our makeup artist giving him this sort of huge red eyes were very emblematic of something that's quite heartbreaking.
She of course is multi-Academy Award-winning costume designer, small films like Chicago and others.
Tim Burton films.
Oh, or the Tim Burton films.
Three Oscars, yeah.
Yeah, and just a remarkable artist in her own right. So did Alex collaborate in assembling his looks throughout the film, or were they done to him, or what was that process?
Well, we only got Alex sort of on the
we had a little visa snafu. So because we found Alex so late in the process, and he was from the UK, which everyone knows I was not thrilled about, but so we had to get the visa for him, which in this case took 6 weeks. So he and we were calling every day, and you can't really push the process along, it just happens at its own speed. But he ended up, we were starting to shoot on a Tuesday, and it was the Friday before, and his visa had not yet come through. And all of us were so stressed out because we were shooting all the way till Thanksgiving. There was no way to go past Thanksgiving, and we were shooting up till the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so there was no way to push our shoot back. We just needed his visa to get approved. So poor Alex was waiting at the embassy on the Monday morning at the Starbucks next to the embassy, just hoping it would come through. It came through around 11 a.m. on that Monday. He went straight from Starbucks to the embassy, to the airport, to New York, landed at midnight on the Monday night, and then started shooting at 5 a.m. on the Tuesday. So he had no rehearsal time.
Was he working with a dialect coach in London?
He actually did work with the dialect coach.
His American accent is perfect. It's really great. And talk about Ian Nelson a little bit, because what perfect casting.
Yeah, Ian is very surprising. He works so hard.
He's Flip in it.
Yeah, Flip. He works so hard on this character, and he's physically quite slight normally, but he really worked hard to in the 4 weeks before running up to the shoot on his body. So he sort of bulked up a bit and trained every day. And I had him living with me, so I'm a pretty hard taskmaster when it comes you're going to the gym now, and here's another plate of meat and potato. But it was wonderful living with Ian, because he also took the art stuff really seriously, and he went to art classes, and he went to the MoMA and found out about artists and fell in love with Jackson Pollock, and we sort of made a few adaptations to the script, because we worked actually with a wonderful artist friend of my husband's and mine, Steve Hannett, and Steve coached Ian in being an artist. But I think that his willingness and his hard work is who Ian is, and who Flip is. Flip is such a decent human being, isn't he?
His humanity is extraordinary, and the Ian embodies that as Flip
Yeah.
throughout the film.
Absolutely. He really loves Billy in the absolute platonic way, but he's his champion and stands beside him and is with him, rescues him from what could have been his being beaten to death. And you sort of imagine at the end of the movie that they're going to be lifelong friends, probably.
His line, I've missed being your friend, is just, it ripped me apart when he utters that in the film.
Yeah.
I just want to read a list of some of the films the two of you have been involved with. The Kids Are All Right, Filth, Bernie, Still Palace, Alpha Male, Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Girl Most Likely, it goes on and on. You've had remarkable careers as producers, and now Trudie, and you've had a remarkable career as an actor. Talk about this transformation for you. You said you were ready at this moment, and talk about that path, if you will.
Well, before Celine and I joined forces with Maven Pictures, that I was a producer in London, and my company was called Shingu Films, and it had a platform that was quite different from the one that we have, and it was to empower first-time writer-directors to only work with them to help put their career on the first rung of the ladder. And so I'm a bit of a hand holder, that's what really you do with a first-time writer-director, because they don't know how to make a film. They have a vision, and their vision is in their script. So I could see the vision and then help put around them, the support system that they needed. And so I was lucky enough when I had Shingu to meet Guy and to do Lock, Stock with him, and then to go on to do Snatch, and Duncan Jones, who directed Moon, and then an American called Ditto Montiel, who did a beautiful picture called A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, which was Channing Tatum's first movie, and Robert Downey's in that, and Rosario Dawson, and Shia LaBeouf's second film. So having that experience of helping the director, so being a producer who's sort of like constantly with the director, was sort of like a big learning curve, because I watched their strengths. I could see sometimes when they were falling down, like some of the directors that I worked with thought that they had to do everything, even though they had great heads of department. It's like, no, I have to do hair as well. No, I want her to wear braids and not. And it's like, that's wasting the HOD that you've hired, because of course you can give an opinion, but I'm not going to tell Colleen Atwood. All I said to her with Billy the Bride, I want a bridal costume, please. And we looked at a drawing and I said, yeah, that's great. So she went on and made it. But I think that sometimes young, headstrong directors just wanted to sort of like think that they needed to do everything because they think that that's their job. And I think the job of a director is really to be in full collaboration with their team at all times, and to really, have great listening skills, because we don't know all the answers. Art is kinetic, it's moving all the time, and there is sometimes somebody on one day who'll give you an inspiration. It's like, thank you, I'll take that, etc.
And Celine, you had to have confidence that Trudie was ready for this moment. So talk a little bit about that. It wasn't just another director dropping out. There had to be a lot more.
Well,
Be kind.
we had confidence from the start, just from watching what Trudie described as her nurturing approach. I mean, I think in some cases, particularly with the younger directors that she's worked with, she was almost a co-director, and she didn't get any credit for it, but basically supported, inspired, gave her ideas, and was really by their side in prep, in the making of the film, and in the edit room. So we all knew that she had the capacity for it, but I think what really impressed us is that ability to listen to ideas from anywhere, to never have an ego about it. And I think one of the stumbling blocks that I really see with directors is in the editorial process. What happens is the editor and the director in a room, and they're working just the two of them, and then every few weeks they're showing the film to people. And they've made decisions. There's a reason why every shot that is in there. They've thought it through. And then they show it to people, and people say it's too slow, or this character's not interesting, or I don't understand this storyline. And the typical response I find from almost all directors is to really reject that feedback because they have made all those decisions. And it's a terrible thing to reject that feedback, because what ends up happening is they're stubborn about it, and then they show the movie to the world, and then the critics, in the newspapers put that exact same reaction. Trudie screened the film once a week throughout the whole post-process, listened to everyone's ideas, and then would go off and think about it and push herself, and really till, at the end of the process, when we were invited to premiere at the Berlin Film Festival, and we had our date, and we were all set to go, and then Trudie said, you know what, I think there's a few things I still want to improve, and she went back into the cut. This was 2 weeks before Berlin, and kept pushing to make the film better, and just always listen to people's ideas.
That is a lesson in collaboration and directing. Why don't we open it up to any questions that you all might have? The woman in the back, right there. No, you just turned around. Yes? Oh, sorry.
That's right. So, can you talk a little bit about working with Abigail Breslin on the role of Lynette? It seems like a funny role for her to play.
The question's about Abigail Breslin and her presence in the film.
It seemed like a funny role to fit. When you say funny, what do you mean?
Well, I imagine she had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Abigail, who you all know, was Little Miss Sunshine and was nominated at the age of 8 for an Oscar. And this was her 40th movie, and she was 19 when she shot Freak Show. She's a marvelous actress, and she's a bit like Bet. She's fearless and courageous, and she totally embraced that Lynette is the mean girl in the piece, and she doesn't flinch away from it. There's some things that she says that have me going, like, sweating. All gays are going to hell. It's like, oh, maybe say it quieter, or no, maybe we should cancel that line. And of course, this character, she's lost, isn't she? She's been conditioned to feel that way, to think that way. She's the counter opposite to Florence, who is a Christian who puts her Christian beliefs into practical use with her compassion, with her understanding Billy, but maybe sort of like not understanding everything about Billy, but accepting. And Abigail has to play that role of someone who says, no, I will not accept you, I'll never accept you. And Abby just went for it, and had lots of fun, and we had lots of fun with her, and I can't ever thank her enough for taking on again a role that she's usually used to playing much bigger roles than this, but she did it not only to support me, but for the themes of the movie that she felt were important.
Great, thank you. Yes, right here.
Hi, my name is Lachlan McClellan. My question was, there was some random zoom in and zoom out throughout the film that reminded me almost like The Office. Was this supposed to mean anything?
So the question is about the camera style of zooming in and zooming out throughout the film.
The telephoto lens is just coming in and like grabbing the person, the face. And I think it's a very voyeuristic environment that we create within the school, like the school corridors too, sort of like shaming places where Billy's walking through and he's shamed and named, and conversely Flip walks through and people take pictures of him. So it's very obtrusive, voyeuristic, invasive, and the telephoto lens does that. And so we used a lot to kind of like create this kind of feeling like sudden invasiveness. So you're here, and then the camera zooms in and grabs that person into close-up, and it creates a lot of energy, I think, within the scenes. But above all, what Dante and me were going for was that this environment of school, which should, of course, be the safest place in the world for our students to be nurtured, to thrive, is anything but. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you.
Quick thing, one statement. I love the soundtrack. Did I hear some Elliott somewhere in there?
Yes.
Questions about the song at the end? Elliott Summer's amazing song.
Great stuff, big fan. Secondly, though, I love the fact that you started talking some about Florence. Do you mind talking about her a little bit more? Because I love, seeing these glimpses of how she treated Billy and how she wanted him to be accepted. And I don't know, I was just kind of like a little bit more time chatting about her.
So a little exploration of Florence as a character in the film.
Celine and myself both really love Celia Weston as an actress. She's sublime, and whatever she does, she's so good. And she is she's a Christian lady, so this was very heartfelt for her. And we talked a bit about Florence, but to me, we needed a counterpart to Lynette, because I don't think that Freak Show, is out to blame and to accuse and to exonerate. Like, we don't say where we are geographically, because to say we are in, North Carolina is to accuse and to exonerate other states where homophobia is rife. Likewise, that I was brought up with a strong Christian practice, but it's a practical one, like Florence is, and Celia really took that to heart, and I think that we see this nuanced performance throughout, where she says, you wanted this child, you were the child that you prayed for, and I helped you. I know I helped you pray for him, and so she automatically is Billy's champion. She's known the family for a long time and has detested the way that Mav presents herself to be, all things to Billy, and is in fact none to Billy. And so she's this sort of guiding light throughout the movie. But kudos really to Celia and that wonderful performance. Thank you. And yes, that was indeed Elliott Sumner, my beloved child. Nepotism is rife here.
Here, yes, gentlemen.
Larry Pine, the father, was a tremendous, the physicality was amazing to Alex. Was he cast before Alex? Was it fate that gave you, a father-son that looked like a father-son?
Osmotic genetic connection there?
No, he was after Alex, and we were looking for the physical resemblance, and then because Bet was slightly the older side of casting for a mother to a teenager, we needed someone age appropriate, and he really was. It was such a rich, and I find the scene at the end with him and Billy such a beautiful and touching scene, and just performed perfectly.
Yes.
Rarely do I see a film that I immediately want to hit play again. Where do you go from here? It's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for doing this and presenting this to us. I can't put it into words.
The question is about the future life of the film.
IFC is releasing the film on January 12th, and we're really excited to take the film out into the world.
As a way of concluding, I'm going to ask a question that I hate being asked as a filmmaker, but because of the times are what they are, I'm just wondering what you hope your audiences will take away from this experience. Is there a kind of implicit call to action within? Is it the satisfaction of his life? Talk a little bit about it.
For me, one of the most touching things about showing this film is, I think when we made it, we felt that hopefully it was a call for tolerance with this specific issue of bullying an LGBT youth. And we showed it to a lot of teenagers when we were in the process of post and when we finished the film, and had such interesting reactions from young people saying, I can really relate because I was overweight when I was a teenager, or I could really relate because my skin didn't look great when I was a teenager, or people really identified with all sorts of areas that they were bullied about. my hope is if it can touch one or a few people in terms of seeing the repercussions of actions when you say something too quickly, when you post something on social media, that then the film is a success.
Great. Trudie?
A few things. I think, that I'm very proud to have made a film that I think can be a tool to be taken into to high school. I don't know you. How many of you are in college that are in the audience? Most of you, right? Well, quite a few of you. Can I just ask you guys a question? Do you feel that this movie you saw is college age appropriate, or do you feel that it's sort of like would show better in like high school years?
Speak out.
High school.
There were high schoolers who liked it.
So I think that we sort of like made it for like the middle to high school kids, where bullying and shaming seems to be more endemic than it does in college. Am I right in thinking that? That certainly was my experience.
Go ahead.
Well, I think since this coming here, I'm first year, so the transition is new. But it seems like people generally care less what you're doing in college. So
Right. Right. Yes, sir.
I think it's a life school. I think that it shows among, other than bullying, tolerance. And I see this in my own relationships. And we all could use more tolerance. And I think it's for me and for them.
Right.
I used the book in my young adult lit class at college, and they loved it. So they always cite that this was what it was like in high school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, thank you. And I think that, just one thing that I'd like to say is thank you so much for attending today. Thank you for your response and your... And I think just on a last note that I think that film festivals are so important because people are coming to the theatre, people are coming to cinema to watch cinema, and we're sitting together and we're actually having a conversation. We're not like texting each other and saying, oh, saw a great film, which I hope you'll do anyway. Pretty please. But I think that one of our fears, Celine and I, is that we make movies and we love showing movies and we love to come out and we love to hear from you and show you the story that we're telling. And I think that what I'm afraid of, and there was an interesting piece in New York Times yesterday from the Facebook owners, Sean Parker said he's beginning to regret that they created Facebook because of what it's doing to community, the breakdown of community. So that's from the creators of Facebook, that they are aware that they created remoteness in our ability to connect with each other. And that's what mornings like this morning has done for the rest of the festival run. You're all connecting, we're all connecting, we're listening to each other, and we're sharing stories. And long may that continue, everybody. And thank you so much to you all for having us here today.
Celine, Trudie, thank you for being here, and thank you for